You say AI should be a force for good, but aren't there already thousands of people losing their jobs to AI?
A lot of people refer to AI as a new industrial revolution. It doesn't just change a few jobs. I think it changes the way we approach work.
So far, we haven't seen really any numbers confirming that there is a massive unemployment wave.
You could get 10 or 20x the output from these people if you layer AI on top of what they do. Let them do the steering. Let AI do the heavy lifting. Those big ideas can kind of come out.
So what's your take with the constant fear mongering? How do we deal with that? Matt, you're CEO of Polyrific and the Geniverse without a formal computer science background. Have I got that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And you're coming from a construction industry and you've spent the best part of a decade building AI that actually solves real problems. So your mission is to make AI a force for good and give people back their time. So Matt, you say AI should be a force for good, but aren't there already thousands of people losing their jobs to AI?
Yeah, there are. It is a real double-edged sword. It's a difficult thing. And, let me first say before we dive deep into that I can't solve every problem. I can try to, focus on doing the best that I can in my sphere to make sure that AI is something good for people. And I've got a lot to say about that. But when we talk about people losing their jobs in the workplace, jobs change. I hate to sound cliche, but we talk about the lamplighters. There's always that example of the people who used to go around and light the gas lamps. They're not around anymore, but there's other jobs, right? People who used to dig ditches, we have backhoes and heavy equipment now. So they operate the equipment instead, and they have other jobs. There should be this constant thrust, I think, of lifting people up. And I do think that, I don't want to digress, so please jump back in and take control whenever you want here, because I tend to ramble. But I do believe that we're in a moment in the world that, again, I'm going to be full of cliches here, I think, but that is huge in terms of a cultural shift, in terms of an industrial revolution. A lot of people refer to AI as a new industrial revolution, the likes of which we've never seen before. And what it does is it doesn't just change a few jobs. I think it changes the way we approach work. It changes the way our culture and our kind of society operates in terms of some of these jobs may go away, but the work week also might become less than 40 hours now. We might have more of an emphasis on paying people well because the profit's there and not assigning humans to menial tasks. If we have occasion in this podcast, I would love to talk about, over the years, everything that I've learned in AI. I'm not a Johnny come lately with AI. I've been into it for a very long time. The more I've studied about it, the more impressed I have become by the human brain and what we're capable of. So I'm hoping that AI unleashes us from making TPS reports and spreadsheets and allows us to do the incredible things that we were put here to do.
I love that, Matt.
Matt,
yeah,
actually,
so cool. Go on.
I wanted to ask you, because I think it's quite connected. I'm sure you've heard that Jeff Bezos now is building an, I think, 100 billion fund to take over the factories and actually automate everything and make everything run on AI. So it's kind of connects to what you said, that there's a lot of jobs that actually not needed to be done by humans, and we actually can use our brains and our creativity in a much better way than doing repetitive work that you would do potentially in factories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that, my opinion, Anastasia, is that the factory workers have better odds than the white collar workers right now, because a lot of those jobs are just going to go ahead and be automated out by AI. It's not there today. If you're deep in it, like I am, you work in it every day, you see the emerging capabilities every day, you start to understand just how much of it can be automated. The factory work with the guy, I think you're maybe referring to, it's a little bit of the humanoid robots and the other forms of automation that's underpinned by AI. I get it. Sometimes you wonder with the big tech companies, when is enough? So they've already got so much market share in retail and cloud. Now we're going into the rest, I guess. But again, I can't solve every problem. It would take an economist, I think, to understand where those people go. I mean, is it going to be painful? It will be a little bit. It's also inevitable. But again, there's this whole other side to AI that I think is incredible. When we talk about the value of time, which we may or may not get into, what it can unlock from human potential, the things that we can go do. And I have a kind of fundamental philosophy that doesn't help somebody that just got laid off, but it is that there's incredible ideas lurking in everyone's brain. You usually can't get those to see the light of day because we're so bombarded with things stealing our time and our attention, that you might have, any factory line worker out there, and I do believe this, it's going to sound empty, but I believe it, may have an idea that gives us more efficient energy, more environmentally friendly energy, or is a cure for cancer, or the rudiment ideas that lead towards that cure, right? And unless we can remove the human from having to focus on pushing buttons and moving pieces of metal around, in that factory scenario, or entering data into spreadsheets, we're never going to see those big ideas come to the surface. So again, I can't solve every problem. I'm not sure economically how we handle that shock. I don't have all those answers. But I do fundamentally believe in the human brain as something that is superior and will be for a long time, and AI is a vehicle that lets us go to great distances.
Hey guys, we're really hoping that you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are, please like, subscribe, and follow. And if you really want to know more about who we are and what we do, go to buildinggreattech.com. Now let's go back to the episode.
Absolutely love that. I think that is like something that isn't actually part of the conversation at all at the minute, is the gift that we have ourselves separate from AI, and so the building of AI can, like, utilizing of AI can actually free us up to be the best versions of ourselves. It's like the tech kind of revolution happened, and all of the businesses have almost offloaded all of their admin stuff onto end users for you to kind of pick up and do on their behalf. So if AI is able to kind of then help us like deal with that automatically, then we can do some more exciting stuff ourselves. And as you said, we're constantly evolving, so it shouldn't be like, okay, all of those jobs that everyone has now are just like depleted and that's it, we do nothing and we're all homeless. Ideally, like, we are actually picking up, and yeah, that can obviously also happen. But I mean, our sort of general capacity to move forward and iterate and change and develop is a human trait, right?
I just want to say that with the Industrial Revolution, the workers actually were told that by introducing the machines, they will have to work less with the same output. But that actually never happened.
Yeah.
So what is promised is one thing, and what actually happens, I think, is really unpredictable, and nobody can really tell what is going to happen in the future. But I love your approach, Matt, that is actually very positive rather than fear-mongering, as everybody's kind of doing these days.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. Sorry, go ahead, Simon.
I was going to say, what would you say kind of your take on like modern life and how that's actually robbing of us of our most valuable commodity? What would that be?
Yeah, well, look, we've invented an entire category of technology that is designed to steal your attention. And my personal point of view, make you feel harassed. And if we stop for a second, we think about what do we all want to get out of this game of life, this ride that we're on? And I don't want to get too philosophical. I understand it's a tech podcast, but if you step back for a minute, you think, okay, I think it's fair to say, I don't mean to assume for other people, but we all want to be happy. We all want to experience joy and love and these fundamental things. We're all so very lucky to be humans, right? We weren't all dealt the same hand of cards. Some people were dealt a less fortunate hand of cards. Some people were very fortunate. But we want to be able to be present and experience that. We talk about presence, right? Being present in the moment. We have all this technology that has been designed over the past couple of decades to take that away. And it's always under this marketing package of, oh, it's going to save you time. But I don't know if you guys can rattle off how many points of communication, just that alone, that you have to deal with every day. Over on my side, we have Slack, we have Jira, we have email, we have text messages, we have phone calls, we have Zoom meetings. I mean, what is that, 6, 7 things? These are just bombarding you with notifications, push to your phone, push to your desktop, pushed everywhere. And it breaks your context for what you're doing. So again, those big ideas that are tucked in these amazing, magnificent brains that we have can't come out because they're just so bombarded. And back, Anastasia, I want to go back a little bit to this kind of, automating our jobs away thing. What I've seen with our clients so far is that people aren't being let go. And I do try to influence that a little bit. When we come in and say, listen, and often I'm with the C-suite when we go in an engagement and we're delivering our enterprise products, AI products, and I can say, look, you could get rid of people, and sometimes people do, get shown the door. These are typically people that were going to get shown the door anyway, right? It's not really AI's fault. It's because they weren't fill in the blank, doing whatever. That's a minority though. For most of them, I do try to help the C-suite see the value in you could get 10 or 20x the output from these people if you layer AI on top of what they do. And that's a big concept. There's a lot to that. If you want me to unpack it, we can. But if you layer AI on top of what they do as an abstraction layer, between all of the noise, all the notifications, all the data, the various things, let them steer. It's like them steering the backhoe, right, to dig a ditch, more effectively than a guy with a shovel could. Let them do the steering. Let AI do the heavy lifting, combining the data, abstracting the notifications, killing some of the ground noise. Those big ideas can kind of come out. And that's what I'm typically seeing is not a bunch of people losing their jobs. Some people losing their jobs. And maybe they would have lost them anyway, but not a bunch. A lot of the times what we're seeing is employers deriving more value out of their team.
Well, it's actually interesting you mentioned that because we were looking maybe, I don't know, a month ago or so at the actual data from like unemployment data in US and in UK. And so far we haven't seen really any numbers confirming that there is a massive unemployment wave. My understanding is like on like annual basis, you have certain people being let go anyway. So at the moment, I think a lot of headlines are talking about, 20,000 people were let go because of AI. But looking like 5 years ago, I think it was similar. Like
you were looking contextually, and then we were like, okay, so what happened in the year previously, and then the year before that, and there is obviously a pattern of getting like businesses just naturally kind of optimizing and getting rid of people.
I don't remember the number. I think in US is like 1.7 million like every year is being let go for whatever reasons. So and I think maybe was it some old man that said that it's a bit of like AI washing and companies trying to pretend that they let go people because the company is so efficient and they introduce all of these AI systems and so they can let go of 10,000 people. But actually, he says it's kind of like probably inefficient company really letting go of people, but saying it's because of AI. Did you see that, Matt, at all?
I've seen that. I mean, it's a convenient boogeyman, I guess, but then not really. I don't know how true that is because, I've got my sphere, my scope that I'm involved in. I don't hold all the answers, but I can tell you what I've seen is a little bit the opposite in terms of AI being used as a narrative to excuse laying people off or whatever. When I go places, on the contrary, the C-suite is concerned with how do we encourage our team to use AI, to see it as a positive thing. Obviously, if that's the narrative that you're trying to build, then going forward and saying, well, this is the reason we're letting go of half the staff isn't serving your purposes, right? So it's going to make everybody scared of it. So I don't know. I've heard several different things anecdotally. I don't know what's true and what's not. During COVID, there was a lot of overhiring. So I guess Anastasia, you were kind of making that point that maybe we're just kind of using AI as a boogeyman a little bit, and who knows what's next. But there is some truth too, though. I can tell you my philosophy at Polyrific, and this has been at play for at least 3 years now. When ChatGPT first got commercialized, it was a shockwave for everybody, right? This is nothing new that you're hearing me say. it really hit home with me. What you can't see is this big bookshelf I have to my left that's full of AI books, a lot of textbooks and a lot of huge tomes that were written about AI in the 1980s, in the 90s. And this is when people were castigated for practicing AI. It seemed like witchcraft or quack science. It was not taken seriously. And a lot of these guys that wrote these books, guys and gals, but mostly guys at the time, were laughed out of rooms. They were dismissed, and they were all right in the end. It's I kind of think about where we're headed with this thing, and is it going to transform everything? Yes. It is. 3 years ago when ChatGPT came out, just to kind of pick back up the line of thinking, I saw from reading all these books previously, I had this kind of epiphany of things are about to start changing really, really fast now. Like, it's been this buildup. People have been talking about it. Again, that magnificent human brain. These thought patterns were out years ago, but now we're seeing it at commercial scale. And when I saw that, it scared me a little bit. Our company's small. We hover around 30-ish people at any given time. We have a part-time bench too that makes our numbers higher than that, but 30 core people, and these are people I care about. A lot of our employees have been with the team for over a decade now, and I know their kids, right? I know their families. I care, and I always will. So when the ChatGPT thing hit, and I got a little scared, I said, okay, right, we're going to learn how to embrace this technology and become the experts. How to use agents, how to deploy agents at scale, how to do it safely for the enterprise, and make ourselves valuable in that way. And so the first year I put us on a mission of, okay, our COO at the time, we need to benchmark everybody's productivity, find ways to measure it, and we need to become 4 times more productive than that by the end of the year using AI. And now there's this term, I don't know if you all have heard it, called token maxing. So you got Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, came out at GTC last week and said, I expect a $500,000 a year engineer to be spending $250K a year on tokens. So using AI to be more effective. What people don't see is the second order of thinking there. Jensen Huang is also saying that just saved me $10 million in hiring additional engineers. So, I have this philosophy of protecting careers at Polyrific. I want our people to embrace agentic AI to become insanely productive. Therefore, I can keep them employed forever. That's my hope. Now, what I do worry about, so back to Anastasia, back to the point on the economy, are people getting laid off due to AI? I don't know. I don't really think so. I'm not seeing that. What I am worried about is hiring, because I can tell you, and I feel badly about this, but it's just a reality that we all face. I am more hesitant to hire now because I don't want to onboard a liability when agentic AI is changing so quickly and can do so many jobs. And if it can't do a particular job, just wait 15 minutes, right? So that is an economic danger for the younger generation. I worry about them. I've got 2 adult daughters, one that's knocking on the door of adulthood right now. I do worry about that generation. I think they have to pick their careers very carefully.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot to unpack there, Matt. I really like that.
Sorry.
So,
well, I would say, what would you say to, like, if your kind of leadership are encouraging you to like pick up AI and run with it within the company at the moment, and there's a bit of a kind of fear in the thought of, if I do this and then I train this AI, am I then going to be like evacuated from the business? What would be your sort of take on how best to approach that?
It's such a funny thing, Simon. That psychology of resistance does exist. I don't think it's about, I'm worried about training my replacement. That's one of those cliches that we've heard over the last decade, really, with AI. Because, in fact, and I don't want to get too technical or semantic, but in fact, we aren't doing a lot of training of AI at all. In fact, when we're deploying AI at enterprises, we're typically leveraging 40 or 50 different models and training none of them. Like, we're not feeding back data. It is in and out, transient, ephemeral use of models and agentic ephemeral use of models that's not retaining any of the data. Can't, right, for the enterprises we work with. And then for internally, when we're using models to help us code or to plan projects or to communicate, it's the same. We're not sharing our secret stuff with those models. Now, the commercial agreements we have with the frontier model providers like Anthropic or OpenAI are written as such that they can't train. Are they doing some stuff? Is there something hidden in the legalese that lets them sort of do it surreptitiously? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that's the concern, though. I think the bigger resistance I'm getting is age old. It is, and I see it sometimes. I don't want to pick on any particular discipline within my organization. I see it across the board. Some disciplines more than other, but I think like we've seen, in a timeless way, there is this resistance to change, this resistance to, I've always done it this way. If you're a ditch digger, I've always used a shovel. I'm comfortable using a shovel. I know how to do that. You're pointing this backhoe thing out to me, and that looks complicated. It's got a bunch of levers, and it's got this big scary arm, and you got to drive it around, and I don't know how to do all that. I'll just use the shovel. It's easy. I'm seeing some of that in other organizations and even in my own. And that is, that's the challenge to get around and to make people less afraid of. And I think part of what solves that is, I myself work in agentic engineering. So I'm a software engineer. As you pointed out, I didn't get a degree in it. I was self-taught, a long time ago now. I consider myself an expert software engineer. I've worked to the top of a lot of organizations before I started Polyrific. And then still to this day, I try to run faster, run harder, push the boundaries further than our engineers do. So they see that example. And I think that always has to come from the top. So when they see the CEO doing it, here's a guy that's concerned with going to raise rounds of investment, signing 7-figure deals, negotiating contracts, business planning, strategic planning, all that kind of stuff. Plus he's doing shipping more code than I am. I think they feel the obligation to catch up.
And can I ask you, Matt, what kind of software, not software, but what kind of tasks do you help these companies to kind of optimize with your agentic AI?
So that's an interesting question, Anastasia. And I don't want to bore everybody and go too far down a rabbit hole, but let me try to summarize it by saying we're doing more than optimizing particular tasks. And I should be careful too, not to reveal too much strategy. But what we see as becoming increasingly commoditized are the point solutions. So the task optimization, right? We've done a lot of that. So to answer your question, I'll give you a few examples. We have helped law firms ingest a huge amount of data and then derive legal strategy from it. Answer arguments from the other side. We have helped insurance companies quickly evaluate, insurance applications against underwriting guidelines to surface the best risks and put into the background the risks that they don't want so they can respond quickly and win more business. We've done a number of different things. We've helped chemical companies optimize, chemical plans for products or treatment plans for their clients. There's a lot of different things we can do. But what I'm increasingly seeing is those are point solutions, right? The point solutions, thanks to things like Claude Code and Codex and all this agentic coding that's coming out, and we've actually built our own, which we call Catalyst Studio. The point solutions are quickly becoming a commodity that anybody can do. An internal IT department can build, an agentic solution or just a non-deterministic solution using agentic coding. What they aren't doing right now very well is managing the layer that's between all their data sources and these point solutions. So that's where the governance, the observability, all of these things are built in. And that's where we're trying to attack right now.
And can I ask you, if it's not a big secret, what would you say is like a error level in terms of, using your agents versus using a human being doing the same sort of similar processes?
I'm actually really glad you asked that question because this came up with our COO yesterday. I had a conversation, and there's times I'm a real passionate guy about what I do. And there's times where passion can lead to detonation, when you're moving so fast, and then the people around you aren't quite moving so fast, and that's okay because not everybody's going to be you. But then when they're moving way slower, we're not going to be agents of averageness here, right? We're all going to do great work. And so something came up in a product meeting, a weekly product meeting we had yesterday. I won't go into the details about it, but I felt that the bar was kind of low, and it led to a conversation that resulted in these cliches being dropped, like, oh, agentic coding is only good at UI. It's only getting 50% or 70%, and I kind of had to say, stop. Where is this coming from? And I know where it's coming from. I've read the LinkedIn. You've got the guys that just aren't embracing, right? And that's where it goes back to what I said previously. I've shipped a lot of full stack applications this year. We're only a quarter into the year. In addition to my day job, when we've been a little short staffed, or just because I had a personal interest, I've jumped on and created applications that are front to back. And I do know what that looks like. I've built them before there was Claude Code, before there was even Stack Overflow, just Google, right, to figure things out. I've built things full stack, and I know what that looks like, and I know what it looks like when it's done right. I've got two absolutely brilliant engineers that help me in doing a lot of the agentic thrust, the products that we build. I've got a whole team of other brilliant engineers that help us service account, and not taking anything away from them. But the two in particular that I have will tell you probably that the job is becoming about taking the last 2% that AI didn't get right. And that sometimes is simply just reviewing the code and saying our style is a little bit different. And Anastasia, that gap will also close within months. So
very, very interesting. So I wanted to quickly come back to the fact that obviously technology takes the time from us, right? You said that we get really distracted, nonstop bombarded with lots of messages. Totally agree with that. So tell me, like, if the technology created this kind of problem of us being constantly distracted, how will technology solve or fix that problem, in your opinion?
Sure. I think it's about having an abstraction layer. Like we have this product that we mentioned, we won't go deep into because it's on a little bit of a stasis right now, called the Geniverse. And that was our B2C, answer to ChatGPT or Claude in the early days. The biggest gap I saw there was in the early days of Claude or ChatGPT, they weren't connecting to your inbox. They weren't connecting to all these data sources so that they could give you the single point to be able to, of abstraction, where you could quiet all the noise and say, what do I need to focus on today? I've got 15 sales emails in my inbox, and one from a coworker and one from a client. Obviously, we know which ones are important, right? AI can help you do that. It can abstract all these points of communication, all these points of data, all these different points that we have across the board, and help you surface the stuff that actually matters, the stuff that's actually important. That's new because we have this confluence of vector embeds and semantic graphs and of course large language models that can make sense out of all of these things and find the right information across a spectrum if everything's connected, which is part of what we do for our clients on the enterprise level. And before that, you had this constant hand raising of different applications, the notifications, the pop-ups, the look at me. It's designed to steal your attention because that benefits not you, it benefits Notion and Slack and Jira, and it's all about dollars, right? They can still get money. They can still grab your attention and say, look, I'm useful, I can do this thing, or you need to pay attention to my product right now. And that's become overwhelming. AI is like I said, abstracting all of that. We're starting to see all these companies are building MCP servers, which is a way for them to remain relevant, but let AI help you filter some of that noise. So that's how I see it helping.
Okay, so what you're saying, just for the listeners, is that the AI can actually absorb all of those notifications, all of the information that's flying your direction, and kind of make sense of it and prioritize it and sort of make it, hey, don't listen to all of this stuff. This is actually where you need to do those 3-5 things today, rather than going through all of your messages and emails.
Well, you as
Sure.
a
I mean,
strategic leader, right? So you define your own, like you're sort of sharing what you are deeming to be important. So then you can kind of choreograph all of those tools to say, these are the most important things and I will do them in X, Y, Z order.
absolutely right, Simon. Absolutely right. So yeah, exactly. We're the one driving the heavy equipment. The heavy equipment being AI, but it's helping us do multiples of what we could do before. And a simple example, Anastasia, is there's a product called Fixer, Fyxer, .ai that I like. They don't know who I am, so this isn't a formal endorsement or anything like that. It's just one that I use. I picked it up from a client of mine that was using it. And it's kind of like an agent that lives in your inbox. And we use G Suite at Polyrific. You would think Google would be the king of this, like Gemini helping you get through your inbox. It's actually, in my experience, it's a bolt-on. It hasn't been that great. Fixer is not perfect, but what it does is, as noise comes into my email inbox specifically, it creates different folders. Like, this is for marketing. This can you can look at later. This needs your immediate attention. And the things that need immediate attention stay at the top of my inbox. I've always been an inbox zero guy. Are you guys familiar with that term?
Yeah.
I always fail on that.
I'm familiar with it. The experience,
no. When I see people with like 10,000 unreads in their inbox, it gives me a panic attack. But that's how I know that I've responded to everybody. And Fixer now, it used to be like playing whack-a-mole all day long. I'm deleting this email, deleting that, because then it's just sales, it's junk, it's whatever. Fixer helps with that. So it's an example of AI kind of being able to, despite the fact that this email got through the spam filter, realizing that it's like the 40th time today that somebody has approached me about selling my company I'm not interested in. It knows that. So it just sticks it in a folder. Hey, read this later if you're interested. And now I don't have to play whack-a-mole with those. So now that's removed. Honestly, remove 5 to 10 emails a day.
Yeah.
And then other sales efforts, which there's a lot. It will remove another 20 of those a day. These are 25, 30 times now that I'm not getting distracted. That it's not even if it's a few seconds, it's taking me out of my context window. It's taking me out of my focus, and I don't have to deal with that anymore. And then it will also, sometimes a little too eager, but will also for the important emails, it will go ahead and compose a response. There's been times when I've been absolutely amazed at how spot on it was, because it surfed all the data in my inbox and kept in mind some of my previous responses. It maintains nicknames that I call people, so it knows how to address them when it's responding. That's pretty cool, but then there's also times where it can be dangerous too, where it's composed just completely the wrong answer, where we're talking about how we would deal with a client or whatever. And I have to pay attention to those, but it's getting better.
I guess that's the 2% that you mentioned that you are needed as a human to say this is good or not. Matt, I wanted to ask you about the inbox specifically, because obviously there's a lot of products now, AI products to connect your inbox to and sort of help organize things. But whenever I speak to people about this, they kind of worried about the privacy. And, because in your inbox, you have everything. You can reset passwords to your bank accounts, delete your life, essentially. How do you tackle it? How do you make sure that it's safe?
Well, for the example that I just gave, Fixer doesn't really have full agentic control over my inbox. So, I guess, Anastasia, make sure I understand the question correctly. Are you talking about, you can get yourself sent a link to reset a password or do whatever, and you're concerned that the agents will go proactively and do that?
Well, you could technically. Recently started using the agent from Base44. I don't know if you're familiar. They launched it two weeks ago, which was really, really good. But you have plenty of other, obviously, tools. At the start of it, I was a bit hesitant, but then obviously the benefits are so great that I was like, okay, fine. But I think a lot of people would just hesitate before using something that connects and can send and compose emails and knows essentially everything about you.
Maybe they should hesitate a little bit. I know that sounds weird coming from an AI guy, but I'm not saying don't do it. There's a lot of sandbox environments in which I would and do test these things, because it's my job to understand the cutting edge of technology. In the example of just a simple inbox agent, that's different from something that can go open a web page for you, sign into your bank account, go to do a reset password flow, check the inbox. these are disconnected systems, right? So, you already have some separation. Now, when you start implementing those agents that can control your entire computer, yes, there's a little bit more to be concerned about. And you need to understand, what security measures these companies have taken. Sometimes that's as simple as an assumption being, it's OpenAI, it's Anthropic, it's one of these big companies. They've got a lot to lose with one bad story about this, right? So that they've built some stuff in. You can always read their terms of use. Then there's simple things that are older tech. Make sure you have two-factor authentication enabled. Use an auth app like Google Auth, so that you put in a one-time code when you go to a site. That's something that the agent can't touch. So if it's something very sensitive, make sure you've got that two-factor enabled.
Cool. Thanks so much. I needed that reassurance a little bit, because I think I started to trust too much AI and all of the tools that I have on my computer now.
Yeah. So what would you say about like reclaiming our kind of own human experience? How can we use this stuff to better support that?
Well, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but like I said, it's a topic that I'm happy to delve into. If I can digress just slightly, but it will add some color to it, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
I give a lot of talks on AI, and for the past 18 months, it's probably time for me to update some of the slides. But there's one of my favorite slides I like to show is a picture of the human brain. It's an illustration of the human brain, not a gross, like somebody's head sliced into. But it's this diagram of the human brain, and it equates what 1 cubic millimeter of our brain tissue, and this is backed up by a study that was a joint study done between Google and Harvard Medicine, where they looked at 1 cubic millimeter of human brain tissue, and they resolved the connections, the neurons, the capacity to hold information to I'm trying to think what the measurement was. It was I think 4 petabytes of information. I may have that wrong. You can go fact check that, but it was a huge amount of data. So this is, this was bigger than any of the models at the time. I think GPT 4 or 4.5 was out at the time, and that was the big deal. Bigger than the knowledge contained by those models. Bigger than a lot of different things. And now we're at this parallel path. So just humor me for a minute. My dad built power plants for a living. So he's been called out of retirement now to go back to work for companies like Meta, who's building all these power plants to power the data centers, to power AI, right? And it's this huge, huge push to get the energy needed. So you've got 1 cubic millimeter of human brain tissue that's holding as much information or more than the biggest models today. And then you've got these huge power plants and data centers powering these models, which can do amazing things. But so can we, and we can do it on the power of a sandwich, right? So I think what we are entering in is this evolutionary step of humanity, which is really good. None of this is to diminish or ignore the things that you all talked about first, which is what about the heart-wrenching step of people losing jobs and us figuring that out? That's a hard thing. And we all have to work together, governments, economists, technologists, we all have to work together to get that right. But putting that aside for a moment, I think what we're about to embark on is this realization that as smart and amazing as these models are, and as much as they enable us to do things, our brains are more smart and amazing. Human intelligence is something that will always be fundamentally different than synthetic intelligence, artificial intelligence, derived intelligence, whatever you want to call it. And I think we're going to discover ourselves after a period of getting over the panic of, all the change that's being thrown at us. I think we're going to discover that our ideas aren't necessarily so crazy. It was just having the tool set now to kill the noise so we could focus on our ideas, and then having that vehicle being AI to help us realize those ideas, help bring those ideas into reality. There's something about, sorry again if this is a digression, but in my mind it all relates. There's something funny about the current state of AI. It can't really be creative. It can feign creativity, and it can really kind of fool you into thinking, wow, that's really creative. But it's all stuff it's seen before. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a sharp example of this. Just this morning, early, before I joined this podcast, I've been working on. I had an idea myself for a business application. I thought it'd be really cool. So I've been working on that, and I've been going back and forth with Claude Code and a few other agents. I've got monitors everywhere, and a lot of them running at once. I said, here's this thing I want to do, and it came back and it's like, oh, this is going to take months. And I've seen that so many times, and I have to reply, stop it. You're an agent. You're not a human being. So stop measuring yourself by human timescale. So this is another representation of how in AI's experience, its look back, its knowledge, the model's experience, it's only basing things on the sum of human knowledge to date. So right now its training data is saying to build a word processor, for example, it takes months or years, when really in reality it takes hours for agents to do that. And it just doesn't know, because everything it's trained on is what humanity has come up with to date, meaning there's no creativity there. There's this layer missing. That's our domain. That's what we're good at. And we can be great teammates with AI if we only understand that, And that also, for me, of course, it's easy for me to say because I'm in an AI company in an age where AI is replacing jobs. And I do want to recognize that it's easy for me to say, but it makes me really hopeful for what we can all do moving forward, if we can leverage these tools.
Interesting. I really love that. Thinking, I'm always reminding myself, okay, these large language models, they're just trained on the data that's already out there and that's just been scraped from what's actually sort of legally exposed online, and not some. But like you're saying, that's actually quite a limiting thought to just think of that, because what could you do with AI's power now, given the context of like the speed at which you can ship apps? What would be your advice to like the individual now looking to kind of understand and utilize and harness? What would be your kind of best advice to start leveraging it?
Well, I would say be curious first and foremost. Be curious, push boundaries. Don't accept anyone, including AI, telling you or defining for you what possible and not possible is. So the example I just gave, if I had a weaker constitution, I would have read the feedback from Claude Code or wherever I saw it this morning saying, oh, this will take months. And I would have gone, oh, well, I guess I don't have the time to do that. Instead, I pushed back on it and said, no, wrong, incorrect. That's a human artifact that's in your training data. You need to think in terms of agent speed, right? So that's one, but let me, that's a bit lofty. Let me back this up and make it more accessible for people. If you're, my wife, for example, is not like I am in terms of technology. I love it. I always want to try the latest stuff. She is a little, just doesn't really enter into the equation. But I think it was maybe a few months ago, she was trying to plan a vacation for her family or something like that. And I was like, why don't you just use Claude? This will be so much easier. And so she's like, all right, fine. She installs it, and now she uses it every day. She loves it. She's like, it's opened the door, and she's on a free account, right? You don't have to spend a lot of money. Understand that if you're using free accounts with GPT or Claude or whatever, they are getting something out of it. There's no free lunch. So that means they are surveilling your information. They are training their models with your data. Maybe that's not a real problem. Google's been doing that for eons, right? We're all used to it to some level. If you have ideas and stuff that you want to keep private, pay the $10 per month. I am a different case. I'm a different scenario. I'm probably spending a few thousand a month on agentic AI. That's not obviously something just anybody can do, but that is my business, right? So it's a business expense. It makes more sense for me. If you're a consultant, if you're a freelancer, if you're just somebody who's got a little bit of disposable income and you can forego the cappuccino at Starbucks every day and instead invest in agentic AI, I really actually do want to finish this thought because I think it's important. Think about it like this, Simon. The celebrities that you know of, let's go there first because that's a simple example. We watch a movie and you see Tom Cruise or you see whoever and you're like, man, that guy looks good and he's whatever he is. I mean, you're a cold plunge guy, right? You do these health things, but you think about like, oh shucks, why don't I look like that? And I'm younger than he is, but it's because he's got a stylist and a dietitian and a trainer and a publicist that helps him polish everything he says. And, they got all these experts around them.
And
And then you go into
Scientology.
there's that thing. We won't, this is out of scope for the conversation, right? But then you move that, you parlay over into business, and these successful CEOs, none of them are successful in a vacuum, right? They've got armies of people. A CEO's job is to have vision and strategy and ideas, but they have a team of people making that possible, shooting down the bad ones, doing the deep analysis. Hey, I have this idea pop in my head for breakfast. Go get me a report by tomorrow. And that could be 2 or 3 people, or it could be 100, in the bigger organizations. I think what AI does, even with the free versions, is it gives you that same capability. It allows you to have these experts and advocates around you, even if you're a kid that just graduated college or a single mom struggling to make ends meet. And it's going to make you more efficient in the management of your personal life, for one, if you use it correctly. But then it's also going to make you more eligible for maybe the jobs you want. It's going to make you come across as more polished. If you work with it, you can use that as a coach. You can use it for so many different things. And here's the one big hack. That is understanding that once you have AI that you're using, whether it's Claude, GPT, or whatever, I like Claude, heads and shoulders above, even my own. Yep. If once you're in there, there's nothing you can't figure out, because you just have to ask the AI, right? So if you're lost, like, how do I use you? It'll tell you, and you just have to be curious enough to do that.
And still, I think I was reading somewhere that 85% of people in the world haven't even used AI so far. So I'm not sure why that would be. Maybe, well, you said there's free versions of everything now. So I'm very curious why the reason behind not using AI. I'm sure like a lot of people are actually scared of using it or not sure what to do with that. Like when first time ChatGPT came out, I think a lot of people were just like, so what do I do with this kind of thing?
Right. Exactly. And some people just need the example. There's the same thing happened with the internet, with the .com era. I'm a little older, so I was awake and aware and, an adult during the .com boom. So I saw all that unfold. But it's funny, as you were saying that, Anastasia, I just pulled up a slide deck of mine, moved it to another window that, for a presentation I have to give in a couple weeks, because we have a great designer that put together this great infographic for me. And it's got these like 5 blocks, and in each block is 100 dots, and they're filled in based on the numbers. So it goes from left to right. Awareness, 95% of people on Earth have heard of AI at this point. Only 55% of people have used generative AI. 45% of people have used AI at work. Only 33% have scaled AI within an organization. This is a little bit more for the enterprise use. And then only 10% of people across the board have used agentic AI. So that includes like Claude or ChatGPT or something like that. So you're correct. And all of these are from surveys and stuff that we've cited. So these are the studies that have been done. We're still at the beginning of this thing, right? And I think that people have to see some successes. Those successful implementations are just starting to come out. The ones that are apparent. Before, when you were using AI and you didn't know you were using it, like with maps or something like that, now people are starting to understand like the natural language interactions, having it access your calendar, your email inbox, your data sources, make useful work product out of that, help you be more effective. The more people see that, the more you have ideas. We were I was in Houston, Texas a couple of weeks ago with a client. We were kicking off a big engagement, and the CEO was in the room with us the first day, talking about his visions for AI at the organization. It's a big organization. And then the very next day, we came in for the second day of this workshop session, and we had already built agentically an app for these areas of AI focus for the vision that the CEO had. And when he saw it, he just kind of goes, this changes everything. And now I don't want for us to we were here to establish this roadmap for the next 12 months. Now I just want us to scrum, get you guys in the room, get, Polyrific's people in the room with us once a month if we can, for ideas, and then rapid iteration. And then the floodgates open. And the idea is, I think the guy spent an hour. We recorded everything, just idea after idea after idea after idea. It just takes people seeing it in the first case. And then I think we're going to see an exponential explosion of adoption.
That's so exciting. It's like finally the speed of development and build is actually picked up with that methodology of Scrum, iterate, get it out, ship, go, go, go. It'll actually can happen in sort of real time rather than the 3, 4, 5, 6 month. Oh, it's got to go into development, and then it just takes months. And by the time it's gone, you realize
the momentum is gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, interestingly, Simon, I think it really changes the way digital products are shipped. I think it changes the way we work. It's certainly changing the way we work at Polyrific. So right now, the shift that's underway is our engineers are probably going to, some of them will be elevated to the very beginnings of the planning phases, and you will have. So we created a new position or a new department within our company called the Solutions Department. So a partner of mine here at Polyrific, a very, very, very bright woman named Natasha Niezgoda, is our Chief Solutions Officer. And underneath her is this whole department that will now work with the clients to understand vision, understand what they need. And then their first step, instead of going to engineers to implement the idea, is to go agentically code it for themselves. I'm not just talking about a UI or a mock-up or a demo. Code the solution. Our engineering team therefore becomes the triage team to go see, like when Natasha's team says, hey, we've built 90% of this, but that 10%, that 2% just isn't getting right. Can you go fix it? Or if it's 100% getting it right, it's still a necessary step to hand that off to the engineers, say, now go review it and understand it so we can support this thing, make sure it's secure, make sure it's scalable, right? So they still have to do all those things, but it's changing the way we do things, changing the whole process.
Amazing. And so, and then what's the sort of test process? You just put it out in the environment, in the business, and it's like practically kind of being used and utilized live.
Yeah, I mean, the big enterprise product we're working on right now, the Catalyst Runtime, which we're not going to go deep into, but that seeks to make what you just said a reality, but make it safer. I think you've probably heard of OpenClaw by now, and that's the sort of personal, people letting agents go do all kinds of stuff. It's exploding. There's not a really good safe analog for that for the enterprise yet. We're working on something that's very similar to make it safe, to allow policies to be set. Agents carry passports that allow them to access certain things and not other things, and permission sets for what they can and cannot do. But yeah, it's not about just making an app and throwing it right into an enterprise. You still need some checks. You still need some balances. You still have to go through and make sure it was safely written by the agents.
But I really want to ask you this question because it seems like you're doing really well making this enterprise software AI, agentic AI. But I'm sure you've heard there's some data. I think Gartner, they predict that by 2027, 40% of all AI agentic projects will be cancelled because of the price of creating those projects, because of the sort of risks behind them. So it's like they don't really trust them. There was another one, I think third one, the unclear value that they will be bringing to the company. So can you comment a little bit on that? Because it seems like your company is in a very good place, but Gartner is still thinking that's not going to be the case for 40% of all these projects.
It's so funny. I've seen that too. I've seen the opposite in reality when I'm out there. Companies are embracing it quickly. Our business has taken off. I, for the first time in my career, have had clients come to me to offer to invest and scale our company because they want to be part of it, even though we're completely different fields, right? So they are seeing the value. I think, and I could be wrong, Anastasia, but I'm going to give you my opinion, okay? I think what Gartner has seen in their studies, we know at a big organization, it takes a long time. Gartner's a big organization. It takes a long time to get anything done, right? And get a consensus, especially when you're Gartner and this report you're going to put out is being trusted by CIOs all over the place. It's got to be right. It's going to require a lot of review. It's going to take time. AI is moving so quickly that the state of the art the state of the consumption of that art possibly, and I think has changed from the time they put pen to paper to the time they released. So what's changed is, in November, I think of last year, we had Opus 4.6 drop. So one of Anthropic's models that phenomenal at agentic coding. I mean, phenomenal, game changing. Who knows when that report was put out? You probably know when it was put out, or who knows when they started authoring it?
July 2025.
Okay, so this was after or before that model dropped. Now that's dropped. And again, back to the example of the CEO in Houston a couple of weeks ago, we have the ability now to go, and like I said, we've put tooling on top of it to make it even better, like agentic coding and access to enterprise data and everything else. We have the ability to go from a CEO's brain to in-place solution in 24 hours. So that means it's not about a 6 month. And in fact, like I said, that CEO said, no, we were all flew in here to talk about the next 12 months of road mapping. Throw it out the window now. I don't care. Now we know that we can have an idea and a solution the next day. So we can stress test it. We can see where the tensions are. We can see if it's going to work. We can let employees put hands on it. And instead of this revolving door of, let's pull this guy off his busy day job to come talk to us about what he needs. And he's going, dude, I don't know. I need to get back to work. Like I'm too busy for this. And then trying to get consensus across departments and like this slow mode of consulting, which is dying, frankly. Instead of that, we can go, here's the vision, here's the thing built on that vision. Everybody take a look and see if you like it or not. That's a totally different modality than having these long committees and these long tail processes to produce something. And I think what's going to get canceled is not the project. What's going to get canceled is the vendors. And I hate to pick on the big guys, but like Accenture, Deloitte, all those, the big ones that are charging way too much to get these things done and taking way too long because they have a vested interest in billable hours. That gets canceled, not the concepts, not the vision. It's just going to be handled differently.
Fascinating. So what's your take with the constant fear mongering over AA? That's I know that you expressed some frustration around that, which was actually how we connected. How do we deal with that?
Here's what's kind of frustrating for a guy like me that works in AI. On both sides, on one hand, you have these doom merchants, and then on the other hand, you have the hype merchants. You have far more hype merchants than you have doom merchants. But I've watched, I use LinkedIn a lot for work. It's one of those tools where you kind of need to network. You kind of need to stay in the know. What's the zeitgeist right now? What are people talking about? And there's one guy that pops up in my feed. I'm not going to call out his name because that wouldn't be nice to do. But it's so funny because he has an AI platform he's built, yet he's built a brand on LinkedIn for being the doomsayer. Oh God, it's going to be terrible. It's going to, it's going to rot our brains. It's going to take all the jobs. It's going to da 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 da. So I'm quickly able to see through some of that and say, okay, this is about getting clicks and eyeballs on LinkedIn. It's not about anything else. The guy owns an AI platform. He doesn't not believe in it, right? So there's just such a huge contradiction right there. I think some people are genuinely scared because they don't understand it. That's fair, right? That's a fair thing, and we all have to work together to, a guy like me has to listen to some of those concerns, and has to be grounded enough to go, what if they have a point? Let's go look into it. That's something that we have to do. But, in terms of there's different types, there's different brands of doom, right? There's the, we're all going to lose our jobs doom. And then there's it's going to be Terminator, Skynet, everything's going to take over. There's that kind of doom. I think the risks are more insidious. I think the risks are if we don't get AI right. We talk about guardrails, for example. And I feel like when we talk about guardrails, we've already sort of lost the lead. You can raise a kid by just putting fences around them, but then whoever has control of that kid later and asks them to do what they need to do, they're going to do it. You can raise a good kid by talking about limits and why we do things, about morality, why we do the things we do. And I think Anthropic does a good job of that. I really do believe that. Maybe OpenAI does too. I don't know. They're not as visible about what they're doing in that regard. No, but how do you answer all the people that are just terrified of it? I think, first of all, the ones that are genuinely scared, I have empathy for and sympathy for, and I'm willing to work with. The ones that are using the fear mongering just to get clicks, I don't have time for.
So, Matt, because as I said, again, you seem like you're very successful in this enterprise space, and I just wonder, like, what's your secret sauce like for that success?
Let me think on that one. It sounds like it should be an easy answer, but man, it was busy getting here. I guess to be stubborn. I guess to go back to. I think this all ties together. Apologies if it seems random, but one of the things I said earlier during this podcast was, don't take no for an answer. Believe in your instincts. Believe in yourself. I graduated with a degree in construction science a long time ago. So I think I graduated in 2001. If I were to have listened back then to society, I always loved software. I just didn't know, there was no one in my family that was involved in computer science or, anything remotely connected. So I just kind of didn't know what to do for college. So I went to this degree field that wasn't even my passion, but it taught me some really valuable stuff that I brought into how I build software. So that was kind of interesting, this cross-pollination. But back to the point, I was always stubborn. So, when I got out of college and for a couple of years, I realized, hey, man, building hospitals and strip malls is not what I want to do for a living. Here, they would always be, in the US, you'd have Barnes & Noble with a Starbucks in it. So I'd go buy the cheapest coffee because I had no money and go sit down at one of their tables and read the books. They used to allow that. I think they still do. But I knew that I couldn't afford to buy the books, especially the programming books. They were so expensive. I just, if I had a coffee, it looked like I was interested. So I'm like taking notes furiously. But if I were to listen to people back then, they'd say, dude, you have a degree in construction science. You have no business thinking you can write a database software, right? Or something like that. I never listened to those things. Like I just ignored them. They were all just noise to me. And I kept going and doing what I was doing anyway. And before I knew it, I was getting engagements and contracts and gigs and offers to be hired at companies to go be a lead developer. And then that led to being a program manager. And then that led to the CTO of one of the companies I worked for, who's a mentor of mine. He's now got equity in my company because he's an advisor here at Polyrific, calling me into his office one day and saying, I've been told to make you a job offer. I was a contractor at the time. And he said, you're not going to take it. I don't want you to take it because you can do well on your own. And, having that kind of validation kind of put fuel on the fire, right? Okay. You never want to be arrogant about it. You should have a healthy level of self-doubt that's just enough to keep you grounded, but not enough to get noisy and keep you from dreaming. You have to be stubborn. You have to believe that you can do something. If there's another human being on this earth that's doing something, you can do it too. And that is something I think is going to become so important for us all to believe in our innate ability to accomplish great things as we move forward into this agentic AI era. Because if we look at the sum total of AI as it's going to be a job killer, man, we've really lost something special. We've really lost something special. If instead we look at it like, cool, now we can figure out free energy. We can figure out a universal basic income. We can figure out, longevity, if that makes sense philosophically, how do you make people live longer and longer? We can figure out, how to enjoy this human experience more and get more value out of it. We can figure out faster than light travel. We can figure out space colonization. We can figure out all these amazing things now because we're all being armed with these teams, virtual, and AI driven they might be, but these teams that can support our thinking and our ideas. But you have to believe in yourself first.
Love that. That was amazing, Matt. I really appreciate your time. It's been fantastic talking to you. Like, what's the best way of people kind of getting in touch with you, finding out more about what you're doing? How should people connect?
Well, first of all, thank you both. This has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity just to talk about something that I am so passionate about. So thank you for that. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. Our company is certainly easy to find, polyrific.com or .ai or .whatever. I think we have all of them. So just go to search for Polyrific. That's why we have a silly name. It's easy to find. It rises above the noise, right? Yeah, go there, use our contact page, go find us on LinkedIn. We might have some other, social medias out there. I don't really pay a lot of attention to that, but I know we're on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you,
Great
Matt. It was really, really interesting. Thanks so much for sharing this knowledge.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. I appreciate you both.